Good afternoon, everyone. End of an empire, overlapping with the fingerprints of the grand solar minimum. We're here now. Global Food Price Index, FAO, highest ever, 140. 159. Germany, 2.5 gallons. Cooking oil, almost 55 euro. Supply updates, supply shortages, limited supplies. Everything on this list will be up 50% or double by the end of the year. And the Big Mac Index far exceeds consumer prices. And another event to push wheat prices higher. Kazakhstan, one of the top 10 grain exporters, going to cease exports. And in the UK, poorest of the families are going to have to choose between heating and eating. And you'll understand why Peru might become the rest of the world. And the Earth discharging the overcharge as our solar system energies change. Overwintered vegetables coming in strong now. And the vibration and frequency of life. Are sanctions and a weaponized U.S. dollar prompting central banks to diversify with gold? As the U.S. imposed the harshest sanctions in history against Putin, the central banks of Saudi Arabia and China have taken notice. Saudi Arabia is considering accepting Chinese yuan for oil sales to China. Could this spell the end of the U.S. dollar as a global reserve currency? Because since March 2020, gold's up 30%, silver's doubled. Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo all forecast gold to surpass $2,000 an ounce. Call the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group has the No Fee for Life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the No Fee for Life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Call 1-800-356-4470 for a free investor guide today. And with the knowledge that Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer from 2016 to present, click on the link in the description box below for more information. And now on with the video. And Ray Dalio here, the big cycles. See the red circle? That's where we are. Right down into the debt and political restructuring. Because it's all about the things that you're going to buy, or if you're going to have enough money to buy things that you'll need to survive through this time. Now, as we head into hyperinflation, things that would be so absurd in prices, but will the wages you're being paid or the money in your bank that's being hyperinflated away, will that allow you to buy what you need to keep you and your family safe? Because we look here, watching the petrodollar evaporate in real time, but the petrodollar is connected to so many other global currencies. If it evaporates, so do Western Hemisphere nation currencies. India already ready to bypass the dollar, trading with Russia, and Brazil's central bank quadruples yuan reserves. And on the bottom paragraph there, the US dollar reserves fell to 80% from 86 a year earlier. That's a 6% decline in a single year. You can see this happening across the planet. So what does that do for food prices? Well, things are just going to cost more money. And the global food price surge, this is from the Food and Agricultural Organization up at the United Nations. It was astounding anyway when it was above 120, and now we're into record territory at 140. Oh, that was last week. Now it's 159. And you can see the vertical rocket ship like we've seen across every commodity since this war with Russia has begun. Everything's following the same trajectory. It's just now the food, which seems to be lagging. You can get a good indication. We're looking at about a 6-week period between onsets of metals and different types of fuels, etc., energy, and then the 6-week lag is the food. So whatever's happening today, 6 weeks later, you can anticipate that the shortages or the increases in price will be visible for everybody. So put about a 6-week lag for that. And if you like a little more technical chart on that, UN FAO World Food Price. And what's interesting is the average since 1990 has been 84, but look at that. We've nearly doubled to 159. Where does it go from here? Above 200 is the next stop. And this off of zero hedge. So if you want to look at the price per month increase, looking at about a 12.64% month-on-month increase, not year upon year. Because almost all the charts that you see are year upon year increases. So in the past, a 12% increase across a year, okay, 1% a month. But now we're getting into hyperinflationary double-digit inflation per month now across the globe for everybody eating. At some point, that inflation is going to outstrip everybody's wages. And then what happens? Well, the first thing is supermarkets start to run dry and they're going to put limit buys on every single item. For sure, that's going to happen. It already is. Look at this. Frozen foods. And you can just go through a bevy of articles where supermarkets across the globe and every single nation are now starting to limit what you can buy. And Germany was going to increase the prices anyway between 30 and 50% at Aldi's supermarket. And then sticker shock here, not 50%, but 550% in a month. That's a 5.5x increase in a month. So this before was around €10 for the same 2.5 gallons of cooking oil. I don't really believe that's sunflower oil. It looks more like maybe canola oil for me, but I'm just looking at the image here. That's astounding. At what point are you priced out of cooking, where you're going to cook without oil? And then if we run down a list of what's used globally on a daily basis, eggs, potatoes, milk, spices, onions, oil, paper products, that's truly hyperinflationary numbers that we're looking at here. You cannot tell me with a straight face that things that are doubling in price, that's not hyperinflation. What is? Triple-digit inflation? Can we finally come to grips and say, hey, we're in the hyperinflationary stage in the very beginning of runaway pricing? I'm surprised that this is not on the nightly news talking about these types of stories, because everybody eats on the planet. Everybody. And now we have macaroni here. French president, we are entering an unprecedented food crisis. And that's right on the heels of Biden saying it's going to get real. And now most national leaders are saying, well, we got to pull back. Even Canada's saying that they're going to have shortages up there. And now we need to jump over to the Big Mac versus the Consumer Price Index. Pretty stark in itself that the price of the food is running away. So if we look on April 5th here at the global food crisis, these are the change in prices since December 31st, 2020. Soybeans up 38%, sunflower oil 36%, wheat 63%, corn 64%, and a bevy of other products. But again, we're touching at almost a triple-digit inflation when you're up at 64, 63%. And, I'd featured this chart in a video I'd done last week talking about European countries in inflation and Spain running almost 10%. And just earlier today, jumping over to take a look at the Netherlands, 11.9% increase, inflation. And then the EU energy crisis, so the Dutch government's asking all people to lower their heating. So they're 19 degrees Celsius. Is around 67, 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So they're asking everybody, please don't heat your home too much. It's a strain. And the prices that they're paying to be able to heat the homes now that there's exceptional cold swinging through Europe for the next few days, the prices are absurd. The energy prices are doubling and tripling as well for heating the homes. Now they're going to ask for the same thing when it comes into summertime, if it continues as it is now. You won't be able to turn on the AC. It'll be too expensive, but then there'll be the mandates saying, hey, you have to be able to regulate that below. And this is where the smart meters come in. They're going to start transitioning to regulate homes on the max heating or cooling that will be allowed. And you can see why the transition to smart meters was put into place. Electric cars as well, they can turn it off and you can turn off your meters. I mean, if the energy crunch gets too intense. It's not your choice whether you heat or cool your home. It will be the government's choice. Staying in Europe, Germany, gas is not available. They'll have to return to coal. Now wait, breaking news, EU to ban all coal imports from Russia. So these supply chain disruptions are just going to reverberate for months, if not years from this point. And then EU to ban export to Russia of semiconductors, high-tech machinery, LNG extraction tech, and other equipment. And at the top right there, BASF CEO, world's largest chemical producer, says cutting off energy from Russia will spiral Germany into its most catastrophic economic crisis going back to the end of World War II. That's a bold statement right there. You look at those images of how Germany was destroyed and how the economy was reset. That's an incredibly bold statement. That is collapse of the global economy, which he's referring to. So you can see if you cannot afford energy, you're not going to be able to afford the food. And then at what point does that bring us to when we're having global starvation? You're going to have to think about getting some of your own food production up and running immediately. And including caviar, no, not the caviar. EU to ban imports from Russia of wood and cement, rubber, chemicals, 5 billion euros a year. But then you need to ask, what's the knock on? Where is the replacement going to be? Or will there be no replacement? Headline, global food crisis. Russia threatens to limit vital agricultural supplies to friendly countries only. And that would be fertilizers, mainly. There's a 1-to-1 ratio. If you reduce the percentage of a fertilized crop 1%, the yield will decline 1%. So now we need to start looking across the globe to see what the global fertilizer declines will be nation to nation, continent to continent, to see what is going to get cut off in terms of yields. And you're going to watch these food prices at the end of the year go stratospheric, would be an understatement, to the point where governments are going to have to set in and start moving into price controls and digital rationing cards. And speaking of the fertilizer, Belarus is going to limit export of potassium fertilizers. And Russia also limiting the nitrogen and the potassium fertilizer. So look for a run and price increases on that for the farmers. Now, Kazakhstan going to restrict the exports of grain and flour. Huge point in the italics, 70 nations depend on imports from Kazakhstan. And they're in the top 10 grain producers on the planet, along with Russia and Ukraine. So we got 3 major producers that are saying, well, Ukraine's not going to have very much yield coming anyway. They're having a difficult time getting planted right now. But Russia cutting off, Kazakhstan cutting off. China has, 65% of the global stored grains on the planet in nation there. Food's going to get real expensive. Have I said that like 6 times already in the video? If you didn't get the message yet, you're going to starve with your family. Truly you are. You need to get ready right now. This bevy of news articles is just from this week. That's how much it's ramping up and how fast it's increasing in terms of intensity of the events then with those knock-ons and price increases. I don't know if I can really frame it in words. I know there's words in English language, but I don't think there's enough words to actually describe what's about to happen when we come into the harvest season. And Europe is also going to cap the potash imports as their planting season begins. So for me, this makes almost zero sense. Like, why would you cap potash imports if your agriculture depends on it? European yields are going to be dismal at best. And you can see why the world might swing over to Peru and Sri Lanka style unrest as food prices increase and get out of the range of most consumers to be able to buy it. So you have the choice of your family not eating or you asking the government for help. There's going to be A or B choice. It's very cut and dry unless you grow your own food. And swinging over to the headline here, Boris Johnson admits families face the choice between heating and eating. The poorest families are going to have to choose A or B. And then at the same time, there's a 1.25% increase in the national insurance, which will take hold the next paycheck. I look at it here and say, whoa, 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 this is completely unacceptable. How is it in this day and age that families really need to choose between heating their homes or eating and feeding their families? It's already a lost cause here. If these kind of headlines are coming out well before the harvest season, we're not even into planting yet. And the disruptions across the supply chain for farm inputs are staggering. This is once in a 1,000-year black swan event what we're experiencing right now. These types of headlines coming out this early right now should actually scare you, because we're not even close to the mid-plant. We're not even close to the harvest. No crop tours have been done yet. And we sit here at this juncture with this much disruption to pricing and availability of food. Oh my. Oh my. The end of the year is really going to rip the fabrics of our society and civilization apart. And then off the mirror here, since there was a disruption, this is the P&O ferry. Apparently they fired everybody and then just got new staff in there. There's a full checklist of what is going to be limited or disappear from the shelves. And it's going to be a lot of fruit and vegetable and cheeses. So that's what's on tap there. And the rundown is everything from aubergines and eggplants and cucumbers, tomatoes, and the list just goes on. It's about 30 items deep. So you can see why that previous headline of choosing to eat or heat your home, everything's just going to skyrocket in the UK. And then to tumble onto the broken glass after slipping off the step of all those articles I just showed you, record-breaking cold hitting Europe. So if there was any emergence, see what I highlighted in blue? Rapid greening of flora damaged, which means anything emerged in the fields is going to get frozen and they're going to have to replant. Now swinging over to Iraq, check out this dust storm. The density per cubic centimeter is some of the highest ever recorded. And then this ground-to-sky lightning is just another indication that our crust and the entire solar system is electromagnetically changing and altering and morphing. This is a discharge pattern of our Earth overcharge trying to send off that electric current outbound into space. It's following the field-aligned currents. It's going all Hall current. And if you would have looked further into the atmosphere, it would have gone out through a blue jet and then a red sprite and then up to an elf halo out to the ionosphere. So it's back to us growing some of our own food again. This is what I'd been last year, kohlrabi, and just covered up with some row cover crop. And look how fast they've grown in the last month. And then also, the cabbage bolted. It never went to any type of vegetable form because it had overwintered, and everything's come up to flower almost instantly. And you're starting to see a lot of, the yellow flowers around. Those are mustard. It's wild mustard. You could turn that into an edible if you're wild foraging. But in the southeast U.S., we get a head start. It warms up here earlier than a lot of other places in the U.S. And then talking about life here itself, this is the blueprint of life in our food. Vibration and frequency in fruit format. But the vibration and frequency of our solar system is also changing. But these cycles are known. They've been mapped out through antiquity. We're just back at the beginning of another of these cycles, and it's intensifying right now. And the intensification period is the most disruptive period. So why are all these governments suddenly wanting to move to new systems? Well, because they understand the old system's not going to survive through the transition of the cycle. Once you understand that time's cyclical and not linear, that these energies, the ebbs and flows, repeat, well, you start to see why great civilizations in the past have collapsed on a regular cycle. I'll talk more about this in Mini Ice Age Conversations podcast. I hope you can join me over there. Trying to build up the podcast, get more viewership, the downloads, and it's 30 minutes at a time with interesting guests discussing some of these same issues, like how do you keep your family safe during this time? How do you get prepared? What have the cycles done to civilization prior? What did they do in the 1600s, in the 1200s? 800 AD. The collapse of the Tang Dynasty is a perfect example. And then we just go back through the volcanic eruptions and the cycles of time. But one thing that is always needed is storable foods. That's how people survive. They had food. My Patriot Supply and Adapt 2030, 25-year shelf life. That link's in the description box below. I do thank you for watching. Hope you got something out of the video, and I'll see you next time.